Science of the Season is sponsored by CM Moes & Son and the Better Business Bureau of Greater Kansas City.
Winter weather is here. The season brings the cold along with the ice and snow, something the Kansas City metro area is all too familiar with. Our weather team is ready to prepare you for what the season will bring.
When snow and ice fall, road crews work around the clock to clear the roads and keep them safe for us to drive. We learn the science behind the salt and how it works to treat the roads.
Snow and ice can wreak havoc on the roads, but these first responders have to face these dangers all in an effort to keep us safe. How they prepare to respond to these emergencies in treacherous road conditions.
And the long-lived effects of last winter have been felt all year long.
We've had unprecedented flooding on the Missouri River that has affected the spring, summer, and fall. Now, how will it affect the winter?
Last year's historic winter was all mapped out through our proven LRC system. Tonight, we prepare you to stay safe by breaking down the science of the season in our winter weather special. Good evening. Welcome to our winter weather special, the science of the season. Tonight, our team of meteorologists dives into the elements winter weather brings and how you can stay safe throughout the season. When the snow starts falling, so does the salt. Meteorologist Lindsay Anderson goes behind the scenes to discover how it all works.
When winter weather strikes, so does salt. It's everywhere. Roads, sidewalks, driveways. But what makes sodium chloride king when snow and ice start to fall?
We know that water freezes at 32 degrees, and so under freezing conditions, you would form ice on roads and bridges. If you can lower the melting point, or actually the freezing point of water, then you can make conditions safer because we aren't forming that ice on the roads.
I visited Dr. Van Horn at his lab at UMKC to get a more in-depth look at why road crews depend on rock salt during the winter months. We set up 2 test tubes inside a sub-freezing solution of 21 degrees Fahrenheit. One test tube is filled with water and the other includes water with a salt solution. The sample without the salt.
This is kind of your slushy stage right there.
What you do not want to see out there on the roads.
Right.
And then when you add that salt solution,
that stays liquid.
That's science, and it's what road crews and public works departments depend on every winter.
It gives us a little bit of a head start on it, a little bit of an advantage.
The salt you see on the roads come from salt mines in south central Kansas, and Lee Summit has tons at their disposal.
Each dome holds 3,000 tons, so altogether Lee Summit has 6,000 tons in storage, and 6,000 tons is pretty close to being what we need in a typical winter.
In addition to the tons of salt, cities use several solutions they can use to combat the winter weather.
Here at this facility, we have three different chemicals that we can mix with. The first one's salt brine. We also use a calcium chloride. We use that when the temperatures get really, really cold. And then we also use beet juice on occasion.
The use of each of these chemicals depends on the air temperature and the type of frozen precipitation.
We have around 10 mixtures that we use and we try out, but typically if we're applying rock salt, we'll put beet juice on it just so it'll stick to the roadway a little bit better. If the temperatures are really cold, we'll play around a little bit with the mixtures. A lot of it depends on the type of snowfall we see and the temperatures and just the overall conditions.
But unfortunately, there is a point that preparation, pre-treatment, and plowing just aren't enough.
The effectiveness of salt decreases very quickly depending on the temperature.
Now take a look at this chart. At 30 degrees, 1 pound of salt will melt almost 40 pounds of ice. If you drop that temperature by just 5 degrees, you need a lot more salt to melt that same amount of ice. So the lower the temperature goes, the less effective salt becomes. Despite the challenge of the bitter cold, they're still out plowing and treating.
We'll use it all the way down to 0, but you have to understand, we may put rock salt down when it's 5 degrees outside. Typically what that'll do is it'll burn a little hole right through the ice and it'll sit at the bottom of the ice, right at the pavement layer, and it really won't do anything more till you start to get some traffic action, maybe a little bit of sunlight to kind of help get the temperatures up.
Road crews work around the clock before, during, and after a snow event.
Our work crews really do care.
Great information, Lindsay. A lot of people rely on the ice melt to get rid of slick spots around their house, but it can be dangerous for our pets. So is there more environmentally friendly pet information?
Yes, there are. I put together some formulas that are cheaper to make and safer. Take a look.
You need just 2 ingredients for our first mixture: white vinegar and water. Simply mix 1 part vinegar and 1 part water. We're using 1 cup of each here. Make sure you stir the solution well. You can always add more vinegar if you have a lot of ice to melt. Then put it into a spray bottle. You can spray this on your windshield to melt ice faster. You can also pour it directly on snowy or icy surfaces. The second solution is also made from items you likely have at home. You'll need rubbing alcohol, dish soap, and water. First, you'll use a half a gallon of warm water. Then add 4 tablespoons of rubbing alcohol. And last, add 1 teaspoon or about 6 drops of Dawn dish soap. Mix it all together. You can pour this directly on any icy surface or use something like a watering can. This mixture will keep more money in your bank account and is safe for your pet's paws. And if you need a little more ice melting power, kosher salt is pet safe and will help get rid of the ice.
And we have those recipes on our website right now. Just head to kshb.com. Gary.
All right, Lindsay, thank you so much. Many of us have a choice of whether to drive during the winter storms. The same is not true for our first responders. Meteorologist Gerard Jabali talked with Olathe Fire and Police to learn how they stay safe while keeping you safe.
We work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It's a tough job.
When somebody needs help, we need to go.
It's a critical job.
We don't have a choice but to be out in the weather conditions.
And whatever Old Man Winter throws at them, they will still be out there doing it.
When people have an emergency, we're coming. We're coming no matter what.
Police, fire, and medical teams across the metro are charged with bringing life-saving help to those in need. And they are determined not to let Mother Nature stop them.
Once we get out there in the elements, we could be out there for 20 minutes. We could be out there for 8 hours.
Snow and ice can turn roads into hockey rinks. Power outages leave thousands in the dark and in the extreme cold. In these dangerous conditions, those who come to our rescue rely on special training and equipment.
We do training behind the wheel. We do training also in a driving simulator.
Most of our fleet is outfitted with all-wheel drive vehicles.
Like having your own snowplow truck to clear the way and drop salt.
When we go into a residential area like a cul-de-sac, it could have a significant snow accumulation because it hasn't been cleared off yet.
And secret weapons to deploy at the touch of a button.
We do have chains that we can use they're right underneath the truck. They're right inside the rear wheels, and they basically spin, so it throws the chain down so we can gain traction with our rear tires.
Tires aren't the only things that need a good grip.
We've got these traction cleats that we issue to officers, and those will simply just slide on your boot and Velcro over the top.
And nobody is immune to the cold.
Another thing we tell our officers is, don't let pride get in the way. If you're getting cold, let the supervisor know. We'll get some relief to you.
We know we're going to be slower getting there, but we got to get there safely or we can't help.
All this training and equipment is great for fighting back the winter elements. But these men and women who risk life and limb for us are now asking for your help.
When the weather changes, all of our driving behavior needs to change too. Schedule more time to get you from A to B. That way you're prepared to go a little slower.
We're here to help, and we love it, or we wouldn't be doing it.
When it comes to driving in snow, less is not always better. Sometimes just an inch of snow can get compressed by vehicles and turn it into very slick ice. Other times, several inches of snow could actually provide much better traction. But it's always safest not to be out on the roads during winter weather. But if you absolutely must, here are some helpful driving tips. For one, plan for at least twice the time to get there and make sure you leave twice the amount of normal spacing between you and the car in front of you. Second, drive as if you have a scalding hot cup of coffee in your lap. Slow down, gentle on the braking, acceleration, and turns while trying not to spill it. And if you find yourself losing control, don't hit the brakes, don't panic. Steer into the skid until you regain traction.
Still ahead, it's a winter problem we usually don't see, flooding.
We haven't seen the ground all year. It's been water.
What farmers need over the next few months before the spring rains arrive. Plus, it may be snowing, but it's not sticking. the science behind the different snowfalls we could see this winter. And after a historic winter, it's time to prepare once again for the cold, snow, and ice. My forecast will tell you what to expect over the next few months. All that and more when Science of the Season continues.
You're watching Science of the Season, sponsored by CM Moes & Son and the Better Business Bureau of Greater Kansas City.
Flooding. It's not a word we usually associate with winter, but this year it's the word many farmers are dreading. Meteorologist Jeff Penner shows us why there's a lot of fear.
It's unprecedented. It's devastating.
Flooding fears are cropping up again.
That area that's flooded today is probably going to remain flooded going into next spring. There's a lot of damage that we haven't even seen yet. Those fields have a lot of erosions and scour areas that are still underwater. We know they're there, we just don't know how bad they are.
Precipitation that was 200% to 300% of average in the Missouri River Basin during the last year has put the Missouri River in a state of flood for the longest time ever recorded by the National Weather Service. This caused over $1 billion in damages. Now farmers fear more flooding this winter could leave their fields encased in ice. Tom Waters is the chairman of the Missouri Levee Association and a farmer. The winter forecast has him watching one thing.
The levees. We've got levees all up and down the Missouri River that are breached, have holes in them. Water's still running through them with the high river. Not able to get in to even look at some of them to assess the damage yet.
67 levees are breached or in need of repair in our region. But the Corps of Engineers told us the flood stage is still too high to assess and fix many of those levees.
We'll probably start doing some work this winter, and then based on field conditions, we really need some dry, compactable soil. So if we can get a relatively dry winter, it'll give those floodplain soils a chance to dry out. Then we'll be able to start construction much sooner.
I asked Tom the worst case scenario.
Number one, they don't get all the water moved out of the reservoirs before spring. And then number two, we have another rainy pattern.
And it's not just our local forecast. Winter brings ice flows, and our neighbors to the north deal with those a lot.
And flooding with ice in it does a lot of damage.
If we have an extended cold period and the river freezes across the northern plains, you can see so much ice that it forms a dam and we can see significant flooding. Ice can also flow into the fields.
It's just like chainsaw going through a building. Or
the best case scenario is we get the water out of the reservoirs before spring.
Right now, they're on target to have all their floodwaters evacuated by mid to late December, I believe.
Many farmers along the river lost their 2018 crop due to flooding. They lost their crop earlier this year due to flooding. And now the 2020 crop is in serious jeopardy.
Just resiliency is key. I know it's been a terribly difficult year for everyone that lives and works in the floodplain. We will be there to fix these levees.
Serious concerns for anyone living along the river. And how long will it take the Corps of Engineers to make all the necessary changes?
Well, the Corps says it could take 2 years to fix everything, and it will cost even more than that was spent during the historic flooding of 1993. Pretty amazing.
When temperatures drop below 32 degrees, you might expect everything to freeze. But that's not always the case. We turn to science to show you the difference between air and surface temperatures and when it can become dangerous. Plus snow day predictions, how these students feel about a day off of school, and how much snow they think we will get this winter. And my own snowfall prediction. My winter forecast is still ahead. Don't go away. Science of the Season will be right back.
You're watching Science of the Season, sponsored by CM Moes & Son and the Better Business Bureau of
Snow is the city gets quiet. It causes problems, yes. But my gosh, if you can just sit at home and watch that snowfall, it's so beautiful, so soothing. Excellent. I love snow the best.
And maybe since I'm from Los Angeles, I like snow a lot more. All right, when the forecast calls for snow, drivers want to know how it will impact the roads. And even though the temperature is below freezing, the roads may not be. Meteorologist Gerard Bailey shows us the science behind the temperature.
I'm meteorologist Gerard Jebailey. We're tracking the winter weather today, and well, as you'll notice, the temperature outside measured by the thermometer here in Storm Tracker right at 32 degrees. So it is at or just below freezing. Now, snow is falling and it is accumulating on some surfaces. You'll see it has collected on the hood of this car, and it's also collecting on things behind me like some of this vegetation. But it is not collecting on surfaces like roads, parking lots. The temperature here is not as cold. It's about 37 degrees that I measured here with this thermometer. The reason for this is that it takes time for the ground to actually cool down. It holds more heat, and we have to have a prolonged period of time before it gets cold enough. Now, typically in early winter, this is what happens, but in late winter or very early spring, the opposite can happen, where the ground is much colder than the air, and that can actually be more dangerous, where any precipitation that falls, even as rain, can instantly freeze on contact.
All right, Gerard, thank you so much. Are we headed into another snowy winter? Here's a look at our forecast for the winter.
Snow, ice, wind, and cold. Snow already fell on the pumpkins this year as Kansas City had its first white Halloween. This tricky part of the weather pattern will be returning several times this winter as another wild winter ride has just gotten started. It snowed 41 times last winter season. How did we do on last winter's forecast? Here is an accuracy check. At this time a year ago, we predicted 26 to 27 inches of snow to fall. 29 inches of snow fell. We predicted a major storm to strike during the Big Chiefs home playoff game in January against the Colts. While other forecasts predicted sunny and 50 degrees even 5 days before the game, our snow prediction came out weeks before and verified as 6 inches of snow fell during tailgating, with nearly a foot falling on the south side of the city. After 5 years of no major snowstorms of even 3 inches or more, we predicted 2 to 3 of these, and we had multiple impacting storms a year ago. We are using a proven technology to make these forecasts. There is organization to the chaos in the river of air flowing above us, with the LRC being the centerpiece of this big, complex atmospheric puzzle. The science and art of weather forecasting are colliding into a method of accuracy that will save lives. There are other pieces of the puzzle, such as the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation. And when these go deep negative, watch out. Conditions for a major Arctic blast will develop, energizing the weather pattern, creating our biggest winter storms of the season.
We already had one very stormy stretch like this in October. Expect this to return as the pattern cycles back through in December and again in February. This will lead to some of our bigger winter storms.
There will also be a few warmer stretches and a couple of long dry spells. It will be a roller coaster ride of extremes. In Kansas City, we are forecasting near to slightly above average precipitation and below average temperatures. We're predicting 3 to 4 major winter storms. There is one part of the pattern that is capable of some ice, so there may be one ice storm too. Kansas City averages around 19 inches of snow, and we are forecasting a bit above average again this winter with a total of 28 inches. So get those sleds and jackets ready for the season. The kids will likely have a few snow days again in 2020. Last winter, lots of snow meant lots of snow days. The changes this year to make sure students get enough learning time. And we get student snow day predictions for this school year.
Maybe it's kind of hard to tell.
Plus, hear all of our snowfall predictions for this winter season. You're watching Science of the Season.
All right, last winter we experienced 29 inches of snow in total. All that snow caused a lot of snow days during the last school year, and students had up to 9 snow days in some school districts. Changes are in place this school year. Missouri schools can actually add minutes to school days to make up for lost time. We went to Tonganoxie Elementary School to find out what students are anticipating this year. Take a look.
Mixed feelings about it. On one end, it can be fun to play.
I love snow. It's the only reason why winter is my favorite season.
I'm excited. I like making forts.
I'm hoping about 9 feet in total, but
3 inches. 5 inches. 5 inches. Well, to 14 inches.
2 feet.
You know, you have all this stuff you need to get done, and then all of a sudden you get a pleasant surprise that, oh, today can be a rest day.
I don't really like it because I like being here at school with all my friends.
7. Probably 3.
Maybe 2 to 4 snow days. 5 to 6.
I'd say probably like 2 to 3, maybe 4.
All right, I love those kids.
I know.
Thank you for doing that, Lindsay. That's fantastic. All right, it's time for our predictions. You already saw mine earlier, but we'll average them all out. Let's go to our weather team. What are you seeing? We'll start with Lindsay Anderson.
Okay, I'm kind of teaming up with a couple of those elementary schoolers. I'm going 22 inches, so just shy of 2 feet of snow this year. I think it's going to be cold enough to support all that.
Okay, and Gerard Javeli?
Well, I'm thinking one of our systems may end up being like an ice storm. I think we're due for that, so we may not see as much snow, maybe some of that ice. I'm going 19 inches to account for that.
Slightly above average.
That's right.
All right, Jeff Penner.
Well, last year I forecasted 27 inches and we had 29. So thank you very much. But this year I think 23 inches of snow. Using the LRC, it's been an active weather pattern. It wouldn't surprise me if it exceeded that amount.
That's right. You know, I've seen a very active October. We've had this long dry stretch, so my instincts are going with higher amounts, as you saw, 28 inches of snow. So our average between the four of us is 23 inches of snow this winter season. So are you ready?
Mm-hmm. I like it.
All right, thank you very much for joining us on our winter special. Remember to stay with 41 Extra News and we will keep you advised.
Thank you for watching Science of the Season, sponsored by CM Moes & Son and the Better Business Bureau of Greater Kansas City.